Were you aware of all the trips that Councillor Magny took?
Some of them, yes. Yes, I knew that he went to Chicago. I also knew that he went to OLA. Although OLA was reported as not being an approved trip, we each received a package, an orientation package, so it wasn't formally approved through a voting process, but we all knew about it. Some of the other trips I learned about after the fact, but not many of them came before, to my knowledge, not any of them came before the board for approval.
So who approved them?
Like I said, if they never came before the board for approval, there would be nobody to approve them.
Did you know that the councillor was entertaining with the credit card?
Not specifically with the credit card, no. I knew the councillor entertained quite a bit. He was always out with the media, always out with different people, promoting different things, and I think, you know, partially in his role as a city councillor, that some of that would be expected, so there could be some commingling or crossing over into different boundaries, I guess. While you're out talking about city business, you could also mention that you're talking about library business. I think it's reasonable to assume.
Without actually naming names, who was the councillor entertaining?
I don't know. I wasn't there all the time, but you know, there was quite a few people in the media that were entertained. I think CBC came forward and issued a statement that they had, you know, received a free dinner. I don't think it was to their knowledge, but certainly the Windsor Star would have been a frequent guest of his. And I imagine...
Members?
Sorry?
Any board members?
Any library board members? Well, as a board, we would go out after meetings sometimes. It wasn't always frequent, but I can think of at least a few occasions where, you know, say near the end of Christmas, we all decided to go out. You know, and then the odd time, if it was a nice night, maybe everybody would go for a walk and end up going out.
Was anybody aware at the time that Councillor Magny was using the library credit card?
Personally, I never looked to see who pays for what. You know, if somebody offered to pay for dinner, we'd let him. If Al always seemed to offer to pay for dinner quite a bit. So I always tried to take my turn, because if you went out as a group, you would go out to more than one place. So it would always invariably be like any group of people. If somebody bought one place, you would decide that you would buy another. But I think there's no question that he did buy using the card.
Who approves the councillor's expenses?
See, that was the other reason for my April 18th issue, is that the board approves all his expenses. The board approves expenses for all board members, and it approves the expenses for the CEO. The process of approval would be that it goes to the accounting department, because it still has to be accounted for in the proper fashion. They would give a disposition on it, and they would forward the reconciled reports to the finance committee, who would then receive the reports. And if you wanted more detail, you could get more detail, but basically the expenses would come in, they would be voted on, they would be approved. Once they're approved at the next board meeting, the expenses would come before the board, included in the recommendations that we would make, and then the board would accept our recommendations.
Did you see the actual individual entries?
No, I just wanted summaries, because at our level, you mean really at a committee level, we don't need to go into that great depth of detail. We could never change what an accountant had decided, because the money has to be accounted for in accordance with the Public Accounting Act. So for us, it's just basically to see a summary, and if you wanted to see something in more detail, you could ask for a report to outline the detail of, you know, the nature of your request.
The CEO introduced a new procedure involving the issuance of credit cards and the use for personal expenses. Did you ask him to do this?
No, not at all. He did this. He did it on his own.
Did you approve the new procedure?
No, we deferred the procedures, and actually he brought them forward during our April 17th meeting with the auditors from KPMG, and I asked them if because of the nature of it, and because of the I guess the temperature of the topic, I thought it was best that a public accounting firm designed those policies and procedures for us. So while they were there, I asked them if it was something that they could design, and they refused. They said that they wouldn't do it.
Put yourself in Al's place. Would you have used the library credit card for personal expenditures? No,
I don't think so. It's kind of odd that Al...
Couples massage for you?
No, no, I'm not a massage guy. Al actually did very well for himself, and I never really saw the need. You know, even based on the fact that he wrote the checks back so quickly, it seems, you know, he's admitted that it was a mistake. I think he really genuinely did make a mistake, because I don't think that Al in any way was hard up for money.
Do you think Councillor Magny should have resigned from council?
No, definitely not. You know, in the scope of what happened, he did use a library credit card improperly, but I don't think that his intent was to take advantage of it. He did pay it back, and he did so in a timely fashion. So I could see if they came in and busted him at the end of everything that went on and said, you know, Al, you've used $15,000 worth of taxpayers' money, you never intended to pay it back, and you tried to get away with it. But that really wasn't the case. I mean, you know, he had the card for a month, and the very first month that the statement came in, he wrote a check right away. There was no issue with it. So we saw two statements. The reason that the first statement took some time was more of an accounting delay than anything. So as soon as the statements were ready, we had two to go at Finance Committee, and they both had checks written from Al. So if there was a little bit of a slip up in the beginning, he had certainly reimbursed the library and made it whole, basically, you know, to what we knew at the time in a very timely fashion.